The user manual you were never given. From programmed avatar to a sovereign node. Let's begin. Our journey, not at a finish line, but at a silent inauguration. The moment when you, for the first time, recognize the visible systems that have governed your perception. You are born into a set of rules, institutions, and stories that become the invisible water you swim in. This total immersion conceals two profound truths. The presence of subtle chains and the very proximity of the key to free yourself from those chains. These chains, however, are not forged in iron. They are made of something more ethereal and therefore more powerful. They are woven from the threads of unconscious habit, chronic inattention, and those silent daily agreements through which you participate in systems that do not serve your highest good. We have identified the cancers, the tumors in our political and social body, which are not individual people, but the systemic architectures that thrive precisely on our automatic participation, our internalized division, and our unrestrained consumption. You are thirsty, a legitimate thirst for meaning, connection, and wholeness, and the only wells presented to you are contaminated. You drink brightly colored beverages that promise energy, you sign contracts offering immediate relief, and you consume torrents of information promising definitive comfort or clarity. But the thirst persists, intensifies, because you are being systematically poisoned at the source. The intoxication is not an accident, it is the business model. To understand the depth of this poisoning, we must go back to the very moment your consciousness, the pure observer, the silent presence that simply is, took form in this world. From your first breath, you were enrolled in a story you did not choose. Your first and most loving tutors, your parents, your family, your community, transmitted to you with the best intention and often unknowingly a pre-existing script. They themselves were bearers of received programming, links in a chain of conditioning that stretches backward generation after generation through all of known history. In this intimate and constant process, the observer began to identify with the forms offered to it: a name, a gender, a nationality, a status, a set of fears, a map of loyalties. Thus was forged layer by layer your ego, a mental avatar constructed from the materials of your time, your environment, your place, and your lineage. This avatar, this apparent and social self, learned to articulate us and them, me and them. Before understanding the depth of those words, it inherited enemies, prejudices, and above all, a sensation of radical separation that came to feel as real and as inerrant as its own body. This programmed avatar is the default interface in which we navigate the default world. It is the character we believe ourselves to be when operating on autopilot, and it is this avatar that control systems are designed to feed, manipulate, and exploit. The dominant systems do not need access to your essential observer. It is enough for them to target the vulnerabilities and programs of your avatar. They operate with perfect and ruthless efficiency towards their design objectives, which are perpetual illness, depth, and division. The the production of the sick body, the modern food complex is not designed for nutrition, but for an addictive happiness point that overrides your body's natural signals to itself. This edible product, stripped of real nutrients and loaded with inflammatory agents, clouds the mind, weakens the body, and cultivates the very chronic diseases from which the pharmaceutical industry benefits by managing them for life. You pay, thus, for the privilege of your own physical decay. You feed a weakened and dependent avatar. The finances of the indented avatar. The financial system is legalized predation, designed to create debtors, not sovereign citizens. It creates money from nothing and charges interest on it. It processes protected by law, whose line with predatory interest has faded. The state funded by your taxes has been captured. It mobilizes the full force of its legal system to enforce this extraction, becoming the collection agency for private corporations. Our avatar is turned into a contract servant of eternal debt. The manufactured division of the tribal avatar. This is the master mechanism. Your avatar is constantly fed tensions of us versus them, based on identity politics of unnecessary regional rivalries that your ego, conditioned from the cradle, is programmed to accept as its own truth. The deeper reality, the one the observer can glimpse, is that the people share fundamental concerns: security, dignity, future for children, far more than these imposed narratives make us believe. The old game of divide and conquer is activated at the avatars, while the structural problems affecting everyone remain unaddressed. This feeds affective polarization, that visceral rejection your avatar feels towards those it perceives as adversaries. A feeling that does not arise from your essential being, but from the perceptions exaggerated or distorted by the informal ecosystems that bombard and define your character's reality. Liberation does not begin with fighting these systems from within the avatar's game, but with an act of double consciousness. I am the one who observes the avatar being observed. This is the programmed diagnosis. It is the moment when you, observer, realize your anxiety is not a personal defect, but the natural response of a conscious being trapped in a malicious program of fear, that your exhaustion is not weakness, but the signal of a system draining your avatar's resources, that the debt loop is not a moral failure, but predatory software designed to extract your future value, that the fear flow is not vital information, but a script running to keep your avatar's cortisol high and its critical thinking low. This act of seeing the code rewrites your relationship with everything. You cease being the problem and become the one who diagnoses the system. You understand that the avatar was programmed for certain outputs, to consume, to divide, to incur debt, that you have until now been confusing yourself with that output. Once you see the code, you can access the kill switch, the deliberate and non-violent termination of your participation through the avatar in the system's most harmful subroutines. This is not a general boycott from the avatar's rage, but a precise command executed from the observer's stillness. It is the withdrawal of consent for your avatar to process certain programs. You stop feeding your avatar with media designed to generate passive anxiety. Your attention, a sovereign resource, is withdrawn. You stop feeding your avatar with media designed to generate passive anxiety. Your attention, a sovereign resource, is withdrawn. You instruct your avatar To reject new predatory contracts, you consciously default on toxic social obligations that only serve to keep the program running. You guide your avatar to renounce competitions that deplete its resources in exchange for empty digital badges. The power of this switch is absolute because the most vital subroutine of the default world machine is your avatar's silent yes. Your conscious non-participation is a syntax error the system cannot resolve. You are not fighting. You are sending from the core of your being a 404 consent not found. Detachment from the programmed avatar does not lead to emptiness, but to creative fullness. The observer, who has reclaimed their sovereignty, does not merely watch, it is ready to code. The energy once consumed in maintaining the avatar's drama is now available to build. This is where we return to ancestral operating systems, not as dogmas, but as open source tools for the soul. Stoicism reminds us that while we do not control the events affecting the avatar, we do control our faculty of judgment and choice. Buddhist and Hindu traditions show us how to dissolve Tana, the avatar's craving. In the space of pure attention, indigenous wisdom of the seventh generation principle calls us to act from an identity that transcends the individual avatar and expands through time. From this conjunction, the awakened observer and perennial wisdom, you can write your sovereign protocol. This is your personal and collective operations manual. Protocol of truth. If the information does not directly affect my ability or my community's ability to thrive, it is background noise for the avatar. If it scares me without showing me a direct actionable path, it is malware meant to hijack my attention. Protocol for resources. Does this transaction strengthen my local network of real beings, or does it drain value toward an abstract cloud? Can I find, build, or share this with my circle of trust first? Protocol of conflict. Is this a real threat to my physical or communal sovereignty? Or is it a narrative conflict generated to make my avatar react and increase the system's engagement? Living by this protocol transforms us from an exploited user into a sovereign node. Our power no longer comes from dominating the avatar's old game, status accumulation, but from the integrity, resilience, and authenticity of our connections in a network. The default world is a cloud that owns your avatar's data. The answer is not to live in it, but to build and connect to local servers, tangible nodes of mutual aid operating on the protocol of help, not extraction. A local server is the visible fruit of the observer's creator's work. It's where the I of the avatar dissolves into the we of co-sovereignty. Examples are the food node, a cooperative, evading, and speculative market. The skills node, a time bank. The care node, a support network based on trust. A node is an act of material rebellion. 3 connected nodes form a resilience group. 10 groups is a parallel network. This network is not trying to hack or destroy the default world. It's running peacefully and silently a better operating system alongside it. It is the materialization of the sovereign protocol. You were never given the user manual because the system depends on your observer remaining asleep, identified with your avatar's programs. The manual, once deciphered, is very brief. It contains a single instruction, a perpetual cycle of liberation. Observe your avatar's code. Activate the kill switch from your sovereignty. Build with other awakened observers a local server. Connect the nodes into a network of recognized gazes. The default world simulation runs on the processing power borrowed from your consciousness. When you, the observer, withdraw your consent to process its commands and redirect that cognitive and emotional power toward building your own network with people you can look in the eye, its simulation begins to fail. And in those failures, in those moments of silence between the nodes, you see for the first time not the static of the void, but the solid and patient texture of the real world. The final and first act of this new life is not a war cry, but a handshake between two sovereign nodes. A shared gaze that says, without words, I see you, server. I recognize the observer in you. I am here. Everything else, the noise, the fear, the depth, the division, was merely the echo of an old, failing channel, a program running on avatars we no longer inhabit. We have stepped out of the dream. We are building, with every conscious connection, the awakened world.